But first, I thought I'd ask you if you could explain for yourself why the winning picture is more special than the other pictures in the contest.
If you look at the history of World Press, tragedy usually trumps other issues. And it does in every other, it does in plays, it does in movies, there's a reason for that. It's a human reason. Although we certainly looked at, carefully at other images in the consideration. I can't speak for the other jurors, but for myself, it was the combination of grief and anger in that picture that added a level of complication to the traditional approach to the death of children. The inanimacy of the children are inanimate, they are dead, but they are visually, still. And the animation, particularly of the man on the left side, the sheer grief of the man on the right. And what's not clear, which we learned in the caption, is that the father is being carried behind them. You can see a white sheet, the edge of a white sheet, and that is the father. So for the people in that picture, it's the loss not just of children, but of family. We only know that the two men in front are uncles, but it might be a safe presumption that they are the brothers of the man in back. So it's the loss of their generation and the next generation. So within the realm of pictures of, endless pictures that we have seen this year in the States, of course, we had a recent tragedy of 27 school children. And there were children killed in Israel as well. And it is, it's the rush of them. They're pushing out of this alleyway, driven by not just the current grief, but frustration and powerlessness and that level of rage and frustration that mixes with the grief that I think ultimately made it the picture that spoke to all of us.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Were there any other? Of course, there were personal favorites, personal preferences that you had. I mean, not maybe to rival the winning picture, but you must have seen pictures that you thought, "Wow, this is fantastic." Could you maybe elaborate on one or two of pictures or series?
I think. And this may be part of the museum world in my experience, but the portrait of the woman in reading in the garbage dump, it's a classical painting. I mean, the colors, the modulation of colors, the gentle, the goldenness of the light, the grace of her pose, the light that falls on the book is very almost Vermeerish, and the stillness of the picture was just and you. I'm willing to take a bet that when that picture is released, people are going to want to find her and help her. It's hope amid all the. We've looked at a lot of tragedy in the last week, and that's a picture where you can believe that there is regeneration and there is hope coming out of desperate situations. The portraits of the people on the hospital ship are extremely beautiful portraits. even in sports photography, there's both the picture of the single of the man in the bull race and his passion, but there's a kickboxing story that won in sports as well, where it's a small sport. It's probably only a local, the most he can probably gain is local prestige, but that doesn't diminish his total concentration and commitment to being the best in his local scene. And then being on the jury, I was a photographer 40 years ago. I learned so much through the eyes of the photographers on the jury. We all came, Elizabeth is an editor, Santiago is an editor, but used to be a photographer. The rest were working photographers. So the liveliness of the discussion coming out of that diverse experiences, nationalities, passion in the photographs and passion in the jury were big components in you could feel, there were times when you could just palpably feel how much that photographer wanted us to understand that issue. Whether it was the woman in Alzheimer's or the insanity of some of the war situations, or the tenderness of those portraits of the gay couples in Vietnam, or even there's in the nature series there are animals in a zoo that are heartbreaking, so that the thing that is important about these pictures is the people who work in the media have a story. The best of them care about what they're photographing and are smart, and they know what the issues are in the story they're going, and they can articulate segments of that story in a visual way that reach the audience. And that was the pleasure. I think it was a wonderful, exhausting, but wonderful week.
Can you explain, or did you have a special task, you think, being a curator of a museum, having to judge photojournalism?
I was nervous coming here, but I might not have been so nervous if I hadn't spent the last 10 years on a project that involved photojournalism. I just completed and opened an exhibition on the history of war photography. And coming to World Press for 4 years was a big part of our research for that exhibition. We started with going to their archives, and looking at all the books and understanding. And then we came to World Press and we attended the awards days and we interviewed the journalists who were attending, and we saw the scope of them. So I maybe was a little more prepared than some curators might be. We also interviewed editors and we interviewed agency directors, and we tried to understand the structure of the media that produces the pictures that the world sees. So I might be a little more prepared than some curators normally would be.